Hi, this is Dave.
And Sarah. We're Chris's physical therapists.
And Chris is one of the least mobile people I know.
And he has a funny walk.
But check this out.
I always recommend just get familiar with that. Like, look at your account statements, look at the terms that they use, look at every disclosure, like read the language in the stupid privacy policy pamphlets we get in the mail from our credit cards and that kind of stuff. Get a little familiar with the lingo, and so that when it comes time to do like the bigger things and to make bigger moves, it doesn't feel like such a foreign language.
My guest on the show today is Michelle Bobrow. She's the founder of the holisticwallet.com. So Michelle has an incredible story. Ends up going to college, racks up $50,000 in debt, including student loans, credit card debt, some other miscellaneous debt. Moves back home with her parents, just what's pretty much normal in today's society, but then decides to do something drastic, pays off $50,000 by the time she's 27 years old, and completely changed the way she thinks and looks about money. And so I'll bring her on the show to tell her story, how she did that, but also we're going to have a fun conversation about the mindset of money, what's going on with the credit card companies, why I think they are out to get you, and what you can do about it. So without further ado, let me bring on Michelle Bobrow. She's the founder of the holisticwallet.com. What's up, Michelle? Welcome to the show. Excited to have you on. Michelle Bobrow from the holisticwallet.com. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff here, but we're going to talk about your debt-free story. I mean, it's incredible. $50,000 paid off. I want to know how you did that. We're going to be talking about your money mindset, but also there's a couple other things that I saw in your bio that I wanted to reach out to you and ask, because that's why we're having you on the show, is you have a pretty unique way of talking about money. It's a little bit different than what you see kind of mainstream out there, and I think a lot of the listeners are going to really appreciate and like the kind of the way you flow with money. But first of all, why don't you just introduce yourself? Tell me where you're calling in from.
So I'm calling in from a suburb outside of West Palm Beach in Florida. I was a New Yorker for 30 years, so this is very new. It's very tropical. It's very wonderful. I'm very happy to be here. I founded the Holistic Wallet a few years ago, which is kind of how I ended up in Florida because it's location independent. I'm online, and I just kind of picked up my laptop and moved on down.
So you grew up in New York. What part of New York did you grow up in?
Queens.
Okay, so you're a Queens girl, grew up there. What's it like as far as like your money mindset growing up? Kind of give me an idea of like in your household, how are the finances handled?
Yeah, so my parents, they both worked. We were pretty middle class or like lower middle class for New York, I guess. My parents, they had like white collar jobs, but like not high paying white collar jobs. And I always had anything that I asked for. So like any new shoes or clothes or a bicycle, whatever it was, they afforded that for me. I didn't realize at the time like how much credit card debt they got into themselves about that. But for the most part, like I didn't feel I lacked in anything growing up. We lived in like a small apartment, but it was like all my friends did. Like this was very normal for Queens kids.
So did you grow up in a big family or was it just you?
It was me and my brother. And
so you said your parents got in some pretty serious credit card debt. What did that look like?
I didn't realize until later. It was like about, by the time I was in college, it was like maybe about $20,000, which was like putting us in camp and getting a used car. And there were just like a bunch of like their credit card debt wasn't like frivolous purchases for like as much as like they bought me clothes and shoes and stuff like that. It was mostly just a lot of necessities, like when things broke, like the stuff that people don't have money saved for.
Sure. The reason I'm asking these questions is this is just normal America, right? I was just looking at some numbers right here. The average credit card balance for people who carry credit card debt is just over $16,000. Mm-hmm. Over 70% of families live paycheck to paycheck. And 6 out of 10 families cannot write a check for $1,000. So meaning they don't have an emergency fund. So I think this is just normal. Normal families, their emergency fund is their credit card. And obviously, parents want to provide for their kids. And if everybody else is doing this whole credit card thing, then we're going to do that too. And that's why you see these numbers. So your parents right around $20,000. That sounds pretty standard. How did this shape you as far as your growing up, you're getting ready to head off to college? What were kind of your feelings on money?
Well, when I applied to college, it was financing college wasn't something that I had to be concerned about because there were student loans. And the way that like student loans were kind of sold to me was that like it didn't matter how much I owed. I just had to pay back what I could afford. So if I wanted to pay $50 a month, I could just pay $50 a month for the rest of my life, which is kind of how I perceived it to be until I graduated and was like, oh, that's actually not how it works. So debt was just something that I had, like, in order for me to go to college, it was just like, oh, this is just something that I'm always going to have. Like, as long as I can make the minimum payments, I'm okay with that because this is just like a fact of life. And I had pretty easy access to credit cards. I guess like most 18-year-olds, I loved having a credit card. I loved like not having to carry cash and keep track of cash. And I was pretty good about paying my bill, and not always in full, but not in full for a while, but I knew I could manage the payments. I never had a late payment. That felt okay for me. It wasn't like this bad, ugly thing that a lot of people frame it as.
Sure. So where did you end up going to school then?
I went to a private school for my freshman year. That cost me about $20,000 a year. And then I transferred to a state school, Stony Brook, and I commuted there. So that was only costing me about $5,000 or $6,000 a year.
Okay. So you graduated after 4 years. What kind of debt were you looking at then when you graduated?
I had about $30,000 of student loans and about $15,000 in a car loan and $5,000 in credit card debt.
Okay. And if you don't mind me asking, so you graduate, what's your income look like right when you graduate?
Well, I was making maybe $1,000 to $1,200 a month. While I was in college, I was working at a bank part-time. So I had that by the time I had graduated college. I also graduated into the Great Recession. So I was just grateful to have my $1,200 a month. I wound up applying to grad school and doing that for about a year just so I can defer my student loans. I didn't have any interest in the degree. It was just an easy way for me to not have to take on more debt to not have to pay off my student loans.
So it sounds like you graduate, you're making, $1,200, $1,300 a month, you said, and you have $30,000 in student loan debt, plus another $20,000, we'll call it just miscellaneous debt, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, I want people to kind of put themselves in this mindset, because I think so many people listening, Michelle, are in this similar mindset, or they know somebody that is, but you're making $25,000 a year,
mm-hmm.
and you have $50,000 in debt. What does that feel like?
Not good. It was kind of like, I wasn't really that afraid of it because it was so common around me. We were all kind of in the same boat. I was living with my parents, so I didn't really have to pay for food or rent or anything like that. But there was this anxiety of I had expected that I could graduate from college, just get a job and deal with everything then. And then that wasn't going to happen. And I didn't really know when we were actually going to hit the bottom of the recession and when things were going to start turning around and that kind of stuff. So I know I was very scared, but at the time, I don't really, we all just kind of complained about it together and held down as much as we could.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the issues I see, and I'm sure you see the same thing, is it's just normal, right? And so I think everybody says, well, we're not doing too bad because we're normal. Mm-hmm. But normal sucks, right? Yeah. I mean, if you think about normal is graduating college and having to move back home with mom and dad because you have $50,000 in debt that you had during college, and you don't make enough money to come out, and we were never taught any of this. I mean, think about this. In high school, even in college, where are the personal finance classes? No one's talking about it. No one's doing anything about it. So it's it's not so bad because, everybody else is in bad shape too. So I guess it's not a big deal. And eventually it is a big deal because you're wait a second, I'm 40 and I live with mom and dad. And I don't want to be beating anybody up that's 40 living with mom and dad, but that's the reality of what's actually happening out there. I think I'll look it up in a minute, but it was some crazy number of the amount of people in their, over age 35 still living at home. Mm-hmm. And a lot of this has to do, if you just keep tracing it back and back, it's not because people are lazy. I hate when people say it's just because people are lazy. It's because they're carrying $50,000 to $100,000 in debt and they're graduating with this promised dream that if you go to college and you take out massive amounts of student loan debt, that you're going to graduate and they're just going to be lining up offering you six-figure a year jobs because that's how the world works. Not. And the reason why I'm asking all these questions is because I know there are people who are in your position who feel like I'm a failure. Why does it seem like it's only me? And it's not only you if you're listening. Yeah. It is Michelle. And, we were in a similar situation. And we've had guests on the show that were in similar situations. My point is this, that you are not alone. You're not on an island. But there is a way out. So my next question, Michelle, is how in the world do you go from living at home with $50,000 in debt, making, $25,000 a year, to paying that all off by age 27? What did you do?
I got lucky. The job that I had been working at, so I went to college. I have degrees in women's studies and sociology and then half a master's in urban affairs. And while I was in grad school, a full-time position opened up in the bank that I was working at part-time. So I was working in capital markets in the mortgage industry, and which was like ground zero of the collapse, which was fascinating for me. But I was offered this job in finance full-time. They liked the way I worked, and I was a good fit, whatever. So I was offered a full-time job, dropped out of grad school, and just took the money and was like, this is a great opportunity. This could be like my golden ticket out of this hole I dug myself into. So while like finance wasn't anything that I was really all that interested in, I kind of saw it as this can afford the other passions and pursuits that I want for my life. So when I was offered that job, like the first paycheck, like I treated myself to something. And then after that, it was like, okay, now how do we use this opportunity to like get everything back on track?
Okay, so I think a lot of times we say luck. We had somebody on just a couple weeks ago that said, I got lucky. And so, yeah, luck is definitely part of it. But I've said this over and over again. If you've listened to this podcast, you're going to hear me say it again, is there's different types of luck out there. There's opportunity luck, there's detrimental luck, there's bad luck, and there's just good luck. So I'll give you a plain out good luck. You win the lottery, okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Bad luck is you sit on an airplane and you have a screaming baby next to you for 10 hours, right? That's just bad luck. There's no way you could have avoided that. But then you have this thing called opportunity luck and detrimental luck. So we all know, we can all think of that person that it just seems like bad things always happen to them. But if you think about it, are they constantly putting themselves in good positions, or are they constantly putting themselves in bad positions? I have a friend, I don't want to mention his name because he actually listened to this podcast, and if you're listening to this, you know I'm talking about you. Yes, is so many times bad things happen to you, and we've talked about it, and I say, yes, but look at the relationships and the people you're hanging out with, right? If you continue to build these negative relationships, you're around people that bring you down, or you're building relationships with people who aren't the best person or best people for you, you are going to find yourself in bad situations. You can call it bad luck. We'll call it detrimental luck. Now, on the other hand, if you're like Michelle and you put yourself in good positions over and over and over again, eventually you're going to hit this thing called luck, but it's called opportunity luck. You put yourself in position to receive that luck. I think about we'll use somebody famous, right? So Tom Brady, right? The story of Tom Brady is, when he got drafted, he wasn't Tom Brady as we know him. He was, he's a quarterback from Michigan. But he wasn't like the greatest quarterback in college, right? Not many people even knew of him. And when he got to New England, he had put in the time and the effort for years and years and years and years. And Drew Bledsoe gets hurt, and they have this guy come up out of nowhere called Tom Brady, and the story's history. So he put himself, he got lucky, correct? No, he put himself in a position for opportunity luck, which is the same thing you did. So when you say lucky, I'm like, time out. We're going to break this down. It is opportunity luck. Would you agree with that?
I agree 100%. Yes.
All right. I feel like I'm stealing the show here. I got real passionate for a second.
But, thank you for pointing that out, because I feel guilty about that sometimes. So thank you for.
Absolutely. So we're going to bring it back down here. I just told you I was going to look up the article talking about people who live at home. So this is from the Pew Research Center. I'm going to quote it. It says, for the first time in more than 130 years, Americans ages 18 to 34 are more likely to live with their parents than in any other living situation. Okay, so think about this for a second. The first time in the history of America, if you are between 18 and 34 years old, you are more likely to live at home with mom and dad than you are to not live at home with mom and dad. Why is that? Why do you think, Michelle?
Because we have rents or mortgages. They're just in the form of student loans. They're not like home payments. Like people say, they're not investing in homes. They're not. But I have friends that have student loan payments that are more than my rent. So I don't think that it's not that they're not financially supporting themselves. It's just they have this one bill that just kind of eats everything up.
I agree. And I'll take that a step further, and I know you agree with me on this too, is I'm starting to believe, I believe this for a while, but I'm starting to be pretty vocal about it, is traditional financial advice is outdated, it's overwhelming, and I think a lot of it is garbage. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to kind of let you take that from there, but what would you say if I came up to you and said, hey, I think traditional financial advice, kind of old school financial advice is just a great thing. What would you say to somebody if they said that to you?
Well, I mean, everything's so much more modern now, and there's so much more technology around it, and our lives are different now. We have our smartphones, and we are on a lot more than we used to be, where we could have time to sit and read a book about personal finance. But so there's that piece of it, but it's also, it doesn't take our feelings and thoughts and personalities into account. A lot of the financial advice it's kind of built in this scarcity mindset of shame and guilt, and you shouldn't have anything that's nice or fun unless you suffer for it first. And I just don't think that that's something that my generation resonates with, because we just have a different approach to these things, where things feel a little more, life is too short. That whole YOLO, we have like that YOLO mindset, I feel like. But there's also like, not that that makes us totally irresponsible, but it's also like, well, we're a little more clear on what our values are. And sometimes we value paying interest on something than waiting 20 years to have, the savings for it. But like, if that's like your mindset going into it, and then you read something that's like, oh, all debt is bad, and you have to throw every single penny that you have towards your debt as soon as possible because it's costing you interest. Like, yeah, but how much interest is it costing you? And like, sometimes I would make the argument that it's worthwhile to pay the interest. There are times when I would pay 5% on a car loan to like have like a reliable car. I would pay that, if like knowing how much that 5% adds up to in 4 years or however long the loan term is. Like, as long as like we're educated consumers, like, and consciously choose debt over waiting and saving money, I don't see any problem with that. And I don't think anyone should be ashamed of doing that.
I feel like a lot of the traditional financial advice hits on the what. Like, you should be doing this. You should pay off your debt as fast as you can, which I agree with. You should, start investing, which I agree with. You should save up for an emergency fund. I agree with all of that, okay? But what I think traditional financial advice fails to do is to tell you why.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody knows the how and the what, and that's easy. All you're doing is telling somebody. But why? As soon as you are able to break down, why it's a good idea to pay off 22% interest so you can invest at 8% in your favor. How does that look like over 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? As soon as you start teaching people the why, the what comes natural. They want to go towards that. If all you do in the traditional sense is tell somebody what to do, I think over time it feels like you're beating the crap out of them with financial advice that they don't understand. And nor do they want to understand. If you're not like me, like, I love this stuff. I could talk about money all day long. Mm-hmm. But if you're hanging out with my wife and you want to talk about money, she's just going to politely get up and walk away, because that is not something she enjoys, right? But if I told my wife the why, right? If I told her, not here's what we're going to do, babe, but I said, here's why we're going to do it. Like, let's just say that we didn't have these student loans. And let's just say that instead of paying 7 and 8% in student loans, let's pay that all off, and let's say that we invested over time at 7 to 8%. That's a 14, 15% swing. That's a huge difference. Or if I show her the why. I remember I was teaching her one time, I said, wouldn't it be nice if we could invest every single year and get about 22% return? And I showed her what that would look like. She goes, how do we do that? I said, we can't do that. But the credit card companies, they do this every single day. With our money. They're investing our money in them for us. And as soon as she understood kind of the why, not the what, but the why, it was like, okay, how can we do this? I want to know how, and I want to know what to do. I no longer had to beat her over the head with financial advice. She saw the why and she thought, oh, wow, like, we could actually be wealthy, which is hard, I think, for people to get their minds around. So what would you say when you meet somebody young out of college, they're living at home, $20,000 or making $25,000 a year, $50,000 in debt, and they tell you, it's not going to work out for me. I'm never going to get ahead. Like, what would you say to that?
Well, I think the first part is breaking through the fear of what those numbers are, because I think like we, especially going from like not making any money to like having some money and then having debt, these numbers are very big. So like, while those numbers might not be big, I think these are very average numbers, I think, but they still feel very big and very intimidating. So like dipping your toes in the water and like getting comfortable looking at the numbers and tracking your spending and knowing that like you have time to make mistakes with it, right? Like, you're just 22 or in your early 20s, you have time to kind of figure out what's working and what's not working, right? So I don't think any of us enjoy wasting money. We don't like the feeling of like having squandered our money or like paying $100 a month in credit card interest or anything like that. But using that time to kind of like taking 3 months of scrutinizing your spending and analyzing like what came up, like what did you account for, what didn't you account for, that kind of stuff, and just like getting familiar with it. Because I think like you had mentioned before with the investing and how much more money you can grow from investing that money rather than paying interest on it. But I feel like people are so intimidated by that piece that like, especially like the financial language around it is so exclusive. It's an like amortization. And there's all of these like words that we throw around in the financial industry that like are not intuitive, so that we hear that like, oh, I can't do that. Like I'm going to lose all this money. Like even when it came time for me to like pick the portfolio allocation of my 401k, or when I was doing my own Roth IRA and that kind of stuff, I was like, the terms and everything are just so intimidating. So it's not that we don't care, or that we don't want to do better, or that we kind of know that it's stupid, quote unquote, to like pay credit card interest than to invest that money and grow it. But it just feels so daunting and so scary, and then we're just going to look so stupid, and that it's just not worth our time. So if we're just ignorant about it, it'll just kind of figure itself out in the end. I always recommend just get familiar with that. Like look at your account statements, look at the terms that they use, look at every disclosure, like read the language in the stupid privacy policy pamphlets we get in the mail from our credit cards and that kind of stuff. Get a little familiar with the lingo and that kind of stuff, so that when it comes time to do like the bigger things and to make bigger moves, it doesn't feel such a foreign language.
Hey guys, I just wanted to pause and take a second to say thank you from me to you for listening to and supporting the Money Peach podcast. Without listeners like you, this show definitely would not be possible, so thank you. The number one question that I receive is this: Peach, I just don't know where to start when it comes to my money. So many of us out there are living paycheck to paycheck. We have tons of debt. We're not making any headway. We can't save any money. We want to go on a freaking vacation where we pay cash for it. Oh, and let's talk about retirement savings and kids' college planning on top of that, right? Where do you start? Well, that's why we created the cash flow formula. The cash flow formula is the same system that Andrea and I used to pay off $52,000 in debt in only 7 months. And the best part is it's 100% free, meaning we are going to send you the free tools and a free lesson on how to set up your own cash flow formula. So to get started, go over to getcashflowformula.com. That's getcashflowformula.com. Once again, head on over to getcashflowformula.com to get your free copy and your free lesson on how to get started the right way. All right, guys, now back to the show. Michelle, tell me if you think maybe you disagree with this or agree with this, but I think what happens is we go to work and we sit there and we talk to our friends, and they're talking about 403Bs, 401Ks, Roth IRAs, mutual funds, ETFs. If you're not a money person, you're like, I just heard a bunch of letters and numbers and I have no idea what they mean. And then they ask you, how does your portfolio look? What kind of ROI do you get? And you're like, what is an ROI in my portfolio? Where would I find that? I don't even know what that means. And then you get home and you're frustrated and you go open the mailbox and you have 6 offers from different credit card companies with promising free trips to Disneyland if you use this card. And you think, well, this seems like a great idea. Everybody else is doing it. My neighbors are doing it. And then you think, well, Johnny down the street got a new car and he has the same job I do. We make the same amount of money. So maybe I should go get a new car. And, Steve down the street sending his 2 daughters to school. And so maybe I should do that, send them to school with student loans. And all of a sudden you just do what everybody else does. And because of the language like ROI and mutual fund, ETF, return on investment, 403B, 401k, Roth IRA, traditional IRA, SEP, all these things get thrown at you and you're kind of like, whoa, what the heck's going on? I'm just going to ignore it and go with the flow like everybody else does. It seems like this is the best method. And then you get to that point and you're like, okay, I'm getting ready to hit bankruptcy. I'm freaked out. I'm fighting with my spouse about money. My kids are going to – it's like this repeated cycle. And I don't want to sound like a conspiracist, but I'm going to say this. It's designed that way. Yeah. It is designed by the banking industry or the financial industry for you not to really understand. Because the less you understand, the more money they make. Let me just make that clear as possible. The less you understand about finance, about your money, the more of it will leave you and go into their pockets. And it is designed that way. It is designed to be confusing on purpose, because if you really knew what was going on, you wouldn't need somebody to force personal finance down your throat. You would say, holy crap, time out. I got to make some changes. The less you know, the more they win. And that's why we do this podcast. That's why I have Michelle on, is because I want the listener to feel some kind of awareness, like take some personal awareness and say, time out. Maybe I got to go look at this thing called a portfolio, or go sit with my HR director and find out, do I have a 401k and is there a match? These are terms that they are scary and they're designed that way, but it's not scary enough for you to figure out and say, okay, I don't like the name 401k, but I like the end result when it's full of money and I retire. That's a good feeling. Yeah,
I think that's one of the reasons that I think took my finances so seriously when I was working full time, was because it was during the Great Recession and it seemed like the big banks didn't really get hurt by it. So as much as everyone lost money, stock prices were down, all that stuff, jobs were getting lost, the banks themselves were still pretty profitable. And that's all public information. And I felt like to this day, like I know the total amount of cash back that I've earned from my credit cards compared to like how much interest I paid. And I made money off of my credit cards rather than them making money off of me, which I think credit card usage is kind of frowned upon in our industry, but I've used it in a way that like I get something out of it. Now I know that they're not designed that way. Like they're designed to get like, they keep like, oh, here's like this 0%. We'll give you 0% for 6 months. Like I know that they're not doing that to be nice to me. They're doing that because they want me to put a lot on the balance and not be able to pay it off. But I think knowing this stuff, like investigating this stuff, as intimidating as it, because it is uncomfortable. Like I remember I was in the industry and these terms are familiar to me. My cousin was signing up for student loans and I couldn't understand the language of her disclosure. And I'm like, and I do this for a living. Like why was I still unable to understand like what, and this is a disclosure that's supposed to like make sure that you are aware of what you're signing up for when you graduate and start have to pay these back. But that also being said, like there are human beings that work at these companies that, and it is their job to explain. Like, so if you don't understand something, there is somebody you can call that it's their job to explain to you what exactly you're getting yourself into. And if they don't do that, like you have the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, who I don't know how much power they have these days, but that's their job also to kind of protect us as consumers and to make sure that we are truly informed and educated.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. What gets measured gets managed in all aspects of life, including your money. So like you had said, you know that you're making money on your cash back versus the interest, any interest that you're paying, right? Because you're able to measure that. So what gets measured gets managed. I think you have to do that, in all areas of your life, fitness, health, even your goal setting, but especially your money, right? Because one thing that I will hit this over and over again. I mean, they say, beat a dead horse. I will beat this dead horse to death. Is what gets measured gets managed. That's number one. But number two is time. So you and I, Michelle, we can always work harder and make more money, right? I mean, it's an option, right? It's not like it's totally off the table. But what is totally off the table for every single person is time. You don't get it back. Every single one of us, you, me, the President of the United States, LeBron James, they get 168 hours every single week, and then it's gone, right? It's gone. You can never get that back. So you can always make more money, but you can't make more time. And the reason why I say this is when you're building wealth, there are two factors, time and money. And like I said, the money thing's actually the one that's easier because you can always make more money. The time thing, that is actually the foundation because once time is gone, you can't make that up. And I would hate for somebody listening to this to not take any action with their finances and then 25 years later go, okay, I think it's time to start. And they go sit down with the financial advisor who's going to run, a bunch of terms they don't understand. But the one thing they're going to leave with is it is too late for you. You did not do anything and there's really not much we can do. So the goals and dreams you had because you didn't take advantage of the time 25 years ago is gone. And that sucks. That just breaks my heart. If there is any kind of passion in me, here it comes. You don't have the opportunity to miss time. You have the opportunity to always make more money, but not miss more time.
Like I do think that like you can still make up the money, but it's just so much easier to do it earlier. You can save $200 a month, starting at age 25 versus like having to save $3,000 a month at age 50, right? Like it's not impossible, but it's going to be a lot more easier when you start a lot earlier than the other way around.
Yeah, you can make up with adding extra money, but it's not linear. So like if you only need to save $200 a month to get to your goal and you wait 50% of the time later, so let's say you start at 25 and then you're age 50, it wouldn't be like, okay, you have to save $200 a month at age 25, which means you have to save $400 a month at age 50. It doesn't work like that. It's compounding, so it's exponential. Like you just said, Michelle, it might be, to hit your goal, it's $200 a month starting at age 25, and it might be $3,000 a month starting at age 50. Just because of the compounding effect. So, Michelle, this was a fun conversation. I had a lot of fun. I love talking with somebody on the same mindset. I want to know, though, where can our listeners find out more about you?
You can find me at theholisticwallet.com.
Okay, so we'll have links in our show notes. If you're, jogging, riding the train, you don't have a pen, don't worry. In the show notes, we're going to have links to all of this. We'll even put links to that article in there talking about most adults living at home now. So what else can they find? Do you have any products or services that you offer that could help somebody out that's listening to this?
I recommend at the top of my webpage, there's a little link that says quiz. And if you take that quiz, it will help you figure out where to start to get your finances under control when you're already in the thick of it. So whether that's debt or savings or mindset or budgeting, all these different areas, it'll help you pinpoint where to start and how to do that.
Awesome. So we'll have links in the show notes to that. We'll have it right to the quiz, right to our homepage. We'll have all that for you guys. And then lastly, Michelle, I end every single episode with 2 questions. First question is, if you could recommend any book to anyone, if you had one book that you could give away, which one would it be and why?
My number one is This Is How by Augustine Burroughs. And it just has a bunch of different chapters to help you deal with how to get a raise or how to survive addiction or a bunch of different things, but great, positive, empowering messages in there.
And the book is called This Is How by who?
Augustine Burroughs.
Awesome. Last question I have for you. On your phone, when you open up your phone, what is the image on the background of your home screen?
It is a picture of a beach, and it says, "Step away from the phone."
I love it. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was great. Looking forward to reconnect with you next time we see each other. And I hope people who are listening, check out your site, check out what you have to offer. Take the quiz. It's free. It's awesome. And we'll be in touch.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me.
And just like that, we wrap up another amazing episode of the Money Peach podcast. All the show notes, the links, anything that Michelle and I talked about can be found over at moneypeach.com/session102. That's moneypeach.com/session102. Special thanks goes out to my producer, Steve Stewart, and my assistant, Kayla Sloan. Without them, this show would definitely not be possible. Stay tuned next week for another amazing episode of the Money Peach podcast. And thank you so much for listening. I truly appreciate you. Take care. Boom, da-ba-doom, boom, da-ba-doom.